The Supreme Court gives away half of a U.S. state. The tax returns of doom come into fire again, and we will see what happens there. And Goya fans refuse to buy Goya, and that's just in the Trump half of the news. On other news, of course, the review of Gates' office is ended from, I'm not sure who ended it at this point. Cities face another surge in violence, and Ben Stiller refuses to remove Trump from Zoolander. Plus, we will read the names and thank everybody who chatted throughout the week. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, folks, and welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a ton to get to today, as we always do here, but I think it's going to be a lot of quick hitters. We'll get done, we'll get on out of here and get everybody off here to work. But before we get started, head on over to freedomscoop.com. Freedomscoop.com is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. We have got my show. We've got The Breakdown with Wyatt Birkenhoff. Go ahead and check that out. Brand new show. It just started up yesterday, so go and check that out over there. We've got the Generational Gap, the Stephen Ignoramus series that he has. Either Call Me Ignorant, the Daily Ignoramus, or the Know Nothing Party. Go over there and check that out. Also, check out the R-Rated Conservative, or the Freckles and Brit Show. And that's everybody. So come on over, check us out, grab some of our swag, and help support all of our great creators. All right, starting out here with the stocks, which I did not have prepared. I apologize. Looks like we had a little bit of a slide throughout yesterday, and we'll talk just a bit about what happened there over on the Dow Jones, which is generally the benchmark of what our economy is going to be doing in at least the short term, so we can go and check that out. It's not the economy, but it's a nice benchmark to compare it against. So a little bit of a slide, but we'll go over and see what happened over there from Investors Business Daily. From Alan R. Elliott. Dow Jones today, futures slip, airlines tumble, coronavirus deaths rise. That's something that you don't hear very often anymore. Netflix jumps on Q2 outlook. Stock futures dragged lower Friday as a narrowing hospital capacities and rising coronavirus death rates deepened the uncertainty over U.S. economic recovery. United Airlines stock took a hit from multiple directions, even as shipping names Greenbrier and Matson spiked on Q2 strength. Netflix jumped on strong Q2 preview, gold miners shaped bases. Defense aerospace names Boeing and United Technologies divided the Dow Jones today. The Dow Jones futures slumped 0.6%, S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq 100 dropped 0.5% below fair value on the stock market today. China markets fell hard Friday, ending an 8-day rally for the Shanghai Composite, but leaving it and Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index sharply higher for the week. Europe's market reversed early declines and rose into afternoon trade, with benchmarks in London, Frankfurt, and Paris all up about 0.6%. Netflix clocked an early 2% advance, leading the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100. Goldman Sachs raised its price target on Netflix to $670 from $540. The note pointed to an above forecast second quarter results and said downloads growth was sharply higher during the quarter. Netflix, an IBD leaderboard stock, is extended after clearing flat base in June. Netflix reports results next Thursday. Specialty chemical makers Linda popped 1.3% in early actions. Shares ended Thursday just below a 4.42 buy point in a deep cup with handle base. United Airlines dived to the bottom of the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100, down more than 3% after Wednesday's warnings of deep layoffs were followed by a cancellation of all flights to Hong Kong due to China quarantine issues and a downgrade of its debt from Standard & Poor's. Other airlines also dived, with American Airlines down 2% and Delta Airlines and JetBlue Airways off 1.5% apiece. But transports were set for a mixed day as shipping and equipment companies Matson and Greenbrier spiked in early trade. Greenbrier surged 13% after reporting a broad fiscal third quarter earnings revenue beat. Matson rocketed 20% higher after revising its second quarter earnings guidance well above the consensus target. Gold nears highs, miners shape bases, because nobody trusts the funny money currency that we have here after they just started pumping a bunch of it out to the American people. And in the Paycheck Protection Loan, and they're about to get ready to go and do it again. Gold futures edged up 0.6%, trading well off the week's highs and around 18.14 an ounce. That's a lot of money for an ounce of anything. Gold is still up more than 2% for the week and tracking toward a fifth straight advance. On Friday, it was trading up almost 20% since the start of the year and less than 5% below its record high set in September 2011. Among gold-related stocks, Kirkland Lake Gold broke out of a cup base on Wednesday, quickly moving out of the buy range. The stock remained extended despite a pullback on Thursday. Kirkland Lake shares were up 0.5% early Friday. Newmont ended Thursday 10% below a 69.23 buy point in an 8-week cup base. Barrick Gold was less than 4% below a 28.60 buy point in an 11-week cup pattern. Franco-Nevada was 6% from a 152.80 buy point in an 8-week base on base cup. Kirkland Lake and Franco-Nevada are IBD 50 stocks. Excuse me. The Van Eck Merck Gold Trust, which tracks the price of physical gold, had a 1.6% gain for the week at Thursday's close. The Van Eck Vectors Gold Miners ETF tracking mining stocks showed a 7.3% gain. And it's interesting to just watch gold in and of itself. And the already conservative was talking about it last night, the fact that we are off the gold standard. And there's almost no chance of us going back to the gold standard, in spite of the fact that it's probably going to be one of the best things for our country. We definitely should be going back to it. But yes, no, the amount of money you have in your pocket does not reflect a share of the gold in the Federal Reserve anymore. That's just the reality of it. But gold is never going to be worthless in this world. So, I mean, I'm not a Birch Gold guy. I would love to have Birch Gold sponsor me, but I'm not a Birch Gold guy. But I'm going to say that right about now, it would be probably about the time to go and find yourself some gold if you had the chance. Find some, buy it, and throw it into your retirement because you may need it if they keep pumping these stimulus checks out. All right, let's keep going here because we've got some good news from CNN, which doesn't seem like it'd be something you hear very often. From CNN Business, from Anakin Tape, Nasdaq hits a record high. Brief, concise, and to the point. The Nasdaq Composite hit yet another all-time high as tech stocks were up among the best performers on Thursday. The index closed 0.5%, exceeding Wednesday's closing record. It was the third time it eked out a fresh all-time high this week. Meanwhile, the Dow finished down 1.4% to 361 points, while the broader Standard & Poor's 500 index fell 0.6%. Stocks had a bit of a volatile day on Thursday, starting the session mixed and selling off throughout the morning after the Supreme Court dealt a blow to the Trump administration. And yes, unfortunately, some of what we're going to see out of the stocks right now are going to be dependent on what happens with the Trump administration. And we've been seeing this throughout the presidency. I mean, our president currently is a money guy. He's a C plus on a lot of other things around his presidency, but he's always been a money guy. So whatever happens to him is going to happen to the markets as well. The market sold off in what seemed to be a knee-jerk reaction following the ruling, said Keith Lerner, chief market strategist over at SunTrust. The stock market has been extremely volatile in the past several months, selling off when coronavirus cases surged and rebounding on hopes for an economic recovery. Yet reminders abound that the economy is still struggling in the form of store closures, bankruptcies, and millions more workers filing unemployment claims. Because, as we remember, people like Gretchen Whitmer, who you haven't heard from in a while, so I think she might be out as the VP pick, or several other Democrat governors, my governor over in this state, told you that you are not allowed to go to work. You're not allowed to go spend money, go to work, and if you do so, you're going and killing grandma, so you just better stay home. So a lot of that is happening here, and I do think a lot of this is engineered. I really do. So that's what we have going on in the stocks. Congratulations to the Nasdaq for another record high, and we hope to see even more of those as we go on. Now, I haven't really looked over the chat. I don't know if Ron is here yet, but it's time to go talk about Ron's home state over here. From Reuters, U.S. Supreme Court deems half of Oklahoma a Native American reservation. From Lawrence Hurley, the U.S. Supreme Court on Thursday recognized about half of Oklahoma as a Native American reservation land and overturned a tribe member's rape conviction because the location where the crime was committed should have been considered outside the reach of state criminal law. The justices ruled 5-4 in favor of a man named Jimcy McGirt and agreed that the site of the rape should have been recognized as part of the reservation based on historical claim of the Muskogee Creek Nation beyond the jurisdiction of state authorities. The decision means that for the first time, much of eastern Oklahoma is legally considered reservation land. More than 1.8 million people live in the land at issue, including roughly 400,000 in Tulsa, Oklahoma's second largest city. Conservative Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the ruling, joining the court's 4 liberals in the majority. Gorsuch referenced this complex historical record that started with the forced relocation by the U.S. government of Native Americans, including the Creek Nation, to Oklahoma in a traumatic 19th century event known as the Trail of Tears. At the time, the U.S. government pledged that the new land would be theirs in perpetuity. Wow, I can read. I read English good. Today we are asked whether the land these treaties promised remains an Indian reservation for purposes of the federal criminal law. Because Congress has not said otherwise, we hold the government to its word, Gorsuch wrote. Gorsuch rejected the state's arguments, which he said would require turning a blind eye to the federal government's past promises. In a joint statement, in the state, the Creek Nation, and the other 4 of what is known as the 5 tribes of Oklahoma, said they were making substantial progress toward an agreement on shared jurisdiction that they would present to the federal government. The other tribes are the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole. The nations and the state are committed to implementing a framework of shared jurisdiction that will preserve sovereign interests and rights to self-government while affirming jurisdictional understanding, procedures, and laws and regulations that support public safety, our economy, and private property rights, the statement said. Unless changes are made, tribe members who live within the boundaries would now become exempt from certain state obligations, such as paying state taxes, while certain Native Americans found guilty in state courts would be able to challenge their convictions on jurisdictional grounds. The tribe also may obtain more power to regulate alcohol sales and expand casino gambling. The ruling voided McGirt's sentence of 1,000 years in prison, but he could face new trial in federal court rather than a state court. Good. Under the U.S. law, tribe members who commit crimes on tribal land cannot be prosecuted in state courts and instead are subject to federal prosecution, which sometimes can be beneficial to defendants. Reservations were established in the beginning of the 19th century after U.S. authorities expelled Native Americans from their traditional lands. Alright, I wasn't going to end there, but I do want to go on to this one here because this will explain the commentary I'm about to make. McGirt, 71, has served more than 2 decades in prison after being convicted in 1997 in Wagoner County in eastern Oklahoma of rape, lewd molestation, and forcible sodomy of a 4-year-old girl. McGirt, who did not contest his guilt in the case before the justices, had appealed a 2019 ruling by a state appeals court in favor of Oklahoma. McGirt is a member of the Seminole Nation. The crime occurred on land historically claimed by the Creek Nation. So, first off, we do need to make sure that this guy goes up in federal court because that list of charges, especially this one, forcible sodomy of a 4-year-old girl. No, that guy should never see the fucking light of day again. I'm sorry. That is beyond horrific. That is just beyond horrific. And the fact that this ruling overturns that I didn't have faith in the federal government to begin with, but that just makes me lose even more of the faith that I didn't have in the federal government. The fact that they did this. But they've also given away, I mean, what does this mean for people of eastern Oklahoma at this point? Do they have to move now? Can the Native Americans kick them off the reservation? The state revenue income of Oklahoma is going to drop. Now, mind you, taxation is theft, but I don't even know what any of this means coming forward, but this is something we need to follow because the Supreme Court just gave away half a state out of nowhere. But we do have some commentary on what that could mean here coming up in the next story. So let's see what 6 Live Now has to say about this here. Oklahoma leaders focus on path forward after SCOTUS tribal jurisdiction ruling, from Eric Payne. Legal experts called Thursday's Supreme Court decision on tribal jurisdictions the most important decision from the Supreme Court affecting Oklahoma in our state's history. Now, Oklahoma's leaders and tribal officials are working out a plan for what the decision means for criminal justice in Oklahoma. Leaders for the 5 tribes said in a joint statement they're making progress on an agreement which they'll present to Congress and the Department of Justice. The U.S. Supreme Court's decision focused on Jim C. McGirt. He's a Creek Indian who argued his 1997 child rape conviction should be thrown out because it happened on Native American land and because federal law said major crimes on reservations must be prosecuted in a federal court. Associate Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote the majority opinion in the ruling for McGirt. Gorsuch wrote, on the far end, the Trail of Tears was a promise. Forced to leave their ancestral lands in Georgia and Alabama, the Creek Nation received assurances that their new lands in the West would be secure forever. He adds that today we hold that government to its word. Today's a great day for Indian country. I agree with Justice Gorsuch's opinion that the government of the United States should be held to its treaty obligations, that the United States must keep its word, Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. said. Cherokee Nation Principal Chief Chuck Hoskin Jr. Really? You couldn't just put Hoskin in there? Said the ruling recognizes the reservation and governments of the Muskogee, Creek, Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, and Seminole nations were never diminished or dissolved. The nation said they're working on a framework of shared jurisdiction. The ruling does not mean those who commit crimes on reservation lands won't face justice. There's no tribe that would welcome that. Certainly the Cherokee Nation won't welcome that, Hoskin Jr. said. Governor Kevin Stitt said it would have implications on some criminal cases in Oklahoma, but they're still going through the details. This is a federal issue. It's something that Congress needs to address to put some parameters on how we're supposed to deal with this, Stitt said. Those 5 tribal nations also said they, and state, are committed to ensuring that Jim C. McGirt, Patrick Murphy, and all other offenders face justice for the crimes for which they are accused. They said, we have a shared commitment to maintaining public safety and a long-term economic prosperity for the nations and Oklahoma. So, this appears to be something that just came about based on the fact that they wanted to retry this case. So I'm not sure, and I haven't read the brief on this. I'm going to, after work, I'm going to look for the actual brief to do this because we're going to go into a lot more depth on this on Monday when I have somebody that I can bounce ideas off of. We're going to go into a lot more depth on it at that point. But, I mean, this all seems to come out of the fact that a guy spent 2 decades in prison for sticking his dick in the ass of a 4-year-old girl. And now he wants out, is what a lot of this seems like here. And I understand the fact that if there was some oversight on the government's part, that this possibly could belong to these nations, these Native American nations. It's possible that it does that. But this land has been bought and sold probably 1,000 times since then, too. So, I mean, what happens to the people that own the land that's on this reservation? Like I said, do they have to get out now? Do they get any recompense for the land that they purchased? Are they just out on their ass? What happens now? There's so many questions that you have to go over with the fact that this is now not federal land. That this is technically a separate nation, even though it does fall under some of the federal jurisdictions as well. So, yeah, I'm definitely going to read the brief. We're going to be talking about this a lot more on Monday when Elaine and I can sit back and bounce ideas off each other, because there's a lot more going on here than just relitigating a rape case. Alright, let's keep going here. Speaking of the Supreme Court, SCOTUS rules 7-2 against Trump on New York tax return subpoena, but Congress can't get financial records for now. Via the Associated Press from Mark Sherman on ABC 6 Action News out of, looks like, Philadelphia. Rejecting President Donald Trump's complaints that he's being harassed, the Supreme Court ruled Thursday in favor of a New York prosecutor's demands for the billionaire president's tax records. But in good political news for Trump, his taxes and other financial records almost certainly will be kept out of the public eye, at least until after the November election. You are fucking fooling yourself if you think that's the truth. Who's the author on this? Mark Sherman? Mark Sherman, you're a fucking idiot if you think that that's the truth. I can tell you that right off the bat, because as soon as the Southern District of New York has their hands on those records, they're going straight to MSNBC. You are an idiot if you think that those aren't going to get released. In a separate case, the justices kept a hold on banking and other documents about Trump family members and his businesses that Congress has been seeking for more than a year. The court has said that while Congress has significant power to demand the president's personal information, it is not limitless. Yeah, we have a Fifth Amendment. The court turned away from the broadest arguments by Trump's lawyers and the Justice Department that the president is immune from investigation while he holds the office, or that a prosecutor must show a greater need than normal to obtain the tax records. But it is unclear when a lower court judge might order the Manhattan District Attorney's subpoena to be enforced. Trump, the only president in modern times who has refused to make his tax returns public, didn't immediately regard the outcome as a victory, even though it is likely to prevent his opponents in Congress from obtaining potentially embarrassing personal and business records ahead of Election Day. The documents have the potential to reveal details on everything from possible misdeeds to the true nature of the president's vaunted wealth, not to mention uncomfortable disclosures about how he spent his money and how much he's given to charity. The increasing likelihood that a grand jury will eventually get to examine the personal documents drove the president into a public rage. Well, yeah, I mean, his rights are being violated right now. He lashed out on Twitter saying, "This is all a political prosecution. I won the Miller witch hunt and others, and now I will keep fighting on a politically corrupt New York. Not fair to this presidency or his administration." The rejection of Trump's claims of the presidential immunity marked the latest instance where Trump's broad assertion of executive power has been rejected. Trump's two high court appointees, Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh, joined the majority in both cases, along with Chief Justice John Roberts, and 4 liberal judges. Roberts wrote both opinions. Congressional subpoenas for information from the president, however, implicate special concerns regarding the separation of powers. The courts below did not take adequate account of these concerns, Robert wrote in the congressional case. But Roberts also wrote that Trump was asking for too much. The standards proposed by the President and Solicitor General, if applied outside the context of privileged information, would risk seriously impeding Congress in carrying out its responsibilities, the Chief Justice wrote. The ruling returns the congressional case to lower courts with no clear prospect for when it might ultimately be resolved. Promising to keep pressing the case in lower courts, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi said Thursday's decision is not good news for President Trump. The court has reaffirmed Congress's authority to conduct oversight on behalf of the American people, Pelosi said in a statement. The tax returns case is headed back to a lower court. Mazars USA, Trump's accounting firm, holds the tax returns and has indicated it would comply with a court order. Because the grand jury process is confidential, Trump's taxes normally would not be made public. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts here, and, I mean, CNN is calling this a win for the presidency, which is really surprising on a CNN, but the fact of the matter is that I can't see the Manhattan District Court coming out here and, whoops, I'm sorry, this just happened to land on Rachel Maddow's desk. But the other side of this, of course, is I am going to laugh my ass off when this gets out and there's nothing there. And I do think, I've thought from the beginning, from the first point that they started begging about these tax returns and these tax records, from the first point they started talking about this, I thought to myself that he's just holding on to these to make sure, or to see just how far past the Constitution they're willing to go against the presidency to try and get rid of the president. How much of the Bill of Rights they are willing to violate in order to get rid of the evil orange man. Like I said, there's nothing there. This is a person who I guarantee has been audited every single year since 1971. If there was something there, we'd know about it already, especially given his celebrity and the fact that he was a celebrity for so long, because the tabloid rags would have been right there to take him down as soon as there was something there. If there was something there, we would have fucking known about it. So, no, this is a gigantic nothing burger, but I can't wait to see where this comes from. And yeah, once again, this is just going to land on that androgynous mad cow's desk. That was the word I was looking for, androgynous. All right. From CNN, from Chris Cillizza, the Supreme Court just shut the door on seeing Trump's taxes before the election. Okay. Legally, Thursday was a very bad day for Trump as the Supreme Court ruled against his efforts to block the turning over of his financial documents to a New York grand jury, which could lead to major problems for him once he leaves office. Politically, however, Thursday was a pretty darn good day for Trump as it cemented the fact that the public isn't going to get a look at his tax returns before the November election. The court rejected the U.S. House's attempt to get a look at Trump's taxes, which would have ensured they would have leaked publicly, and even in the case of the New York grand jury, the court remanded it back to a lower court, meaning that Trump isn't giving his financial records to anyone just yet. These twin rulings avoided an election doomsday scenario for Trump. The public release of a detailed look at his financial history before he faces voters the second time. Trump is and will remain the lone major party presidential candidate or president to release zero past tax returns. That's not true. Oh, okay, let me rephrase that. He didn't release them, but his 2004 returns did come out. And after Rachel Maddow read them on the air, it was determined that he was actually owed a refund for 2004 because he overpaid in taxes. I'm going to laugh if that's the case too. Joe Biden released his 2017 and 2018 tax returns last summer. Well, Joe Biden has worked for the government since 1971. So, I mean, they already knew everything that was in there to begin with. Which is in the live to fight another day worldview of Trump is a win. Trump has long used the legal system to delay unsavory outcomes for him. This is that. If that seems counterintuitive, it's largely because of the complicated nature of the two cases that the court ruled on Thursday. The cases were similar but not the same, and they carried out differing stakes for Trump. In the New York case, Trump versus Vance, the subpoena of the president's tax returns was specifically regarding an ongoing grand jury investigation looking into whether Trump or the Trump Organization violated state laws that they made up in order to try and go after him and get his tax returns released in connection with hush money payments made to the two women, Karen McDougal and Stormy Daniels, during the run-up to the 2016 election. Both women alleged that Trump had conducted extramarital affairs with them. The investigation has also looked into whether business records filed with the state were falsified and if any tax laws were violated. CNN has reported the court ruled that Trump was not covered by presidential immunity and therefore had to turn over the subpoena documents. Although they remanded the case, meaning that the turnover won't happen immediately, and even if Manhattan District Attorney Cyrus Vance does eventually get tax records, which now seems very unlikely, it will be in the context of grand jury investigation, and that's a very big no-no to leak grand jury evidence, but you know it's going to happen. In the Congress case, Trump versus Mazars, the issue is whether members of Congress had the right to see Trump's taxes and financial documents in pursuit of an investigation into whether conflict of interest and disclosure laws needed to be amended or updated. Had the court ruled in favor of Congress, the details of Trump's financial history would have definitely been made public, since Congress leaking things is a practice as old as time itself. Yeah, and once I'm going to make the same joke I made over on Callie Kitty's Twitter over there. This story is so old that Angela Lansbury sang it as a teapot. That's how old this story is. So, yeah. I guess he's going to have to turn them over, and, well, no, he doesn't technically have to turn them over yet. It still has to go down and be ruled on by a lower court. But good luck getting past New York when you're a sitting Republican president. Even if you're not a Republican by any stretch of the imagination, good luck getting past that court. And we will see what happens. This might be our October surprise. All right, I've got one more on the tax return story here. From Fox News, Juan Williams says Trump really came out on top in Supreme Court ruling on tax documents. From Yale Halon, the Five co-host, Juan Williams, declared Thursday's Supreme Court ruling blocking immediate congressional access to President Trump's tax returns to be a short-term victory for the president in his re-election efforts. The key thing here for the president in the short term is that his taxes will not likely be out in public before the November election, Williams said. Although we saw him earlier Thursday with his hands across his chest looking defensively and talking about Obama and witch hunts, I think you're looking at it politically. He really came out on top in terms of Congress, not having immediate access to the records, he added. Trump voiced his frustrations with the High Court on Twitter Thursday after the justices declined to issue a definitive ruling on whether congressional committees could have access to his financial records, throwing the issue back to lower courts. The case involves subpoenas from 4 Democrat-led House committees for banking and accounting records involving Trump and his family. In the long term, I think the big ticket is that you have a conservative Supreme Court stating it's not a fucking conservative Supreme Court. Stating very clearly that in terms of prosecution and in terms of investigation that the president is not above the law. The inconclusive ruling demonstrates that every American, including the president, has to respond to legal subpoenas and actions in that regard, Williams continued, and I think that is something that goes beyond the political moment. Williams was citing a separate ruling in which the court declared Trump vulnerable to a subpoena for his financial and tax records by a Manhattan District Attorney, Cyrus Vance Jr. The president said he could not be investigated, couldn't be prosecuted, could shoot a man on Fifth Avenue, Williams said. He even said he could pardon himself. I don't know if that's true or not. Well, here's the Supreme Court saying that's not the case, Mr. President. No kings around here. So, and yeah, there's just a lot of moving parts to this as well. And once again, I'm going to laugh my ass off when it comes out that he overpaid in taxes. Especially given the fact that, like I said, he's been audited every single time since the 70s. So, that's what we're seeing on the taxes here, and we'll definitely talk more about that on Monday as well. So, let's keep going down the road here. On the other end of this, Trump opponents refuse to buy Goya Foods. This is from Local 10 out of, doesn't say where they're out of here. From Andrea Torres is the author onto this. Cooks who are fans of Goya Foods found themselves in the middle of a pre-election political turmoil on Thursday evening. Robert Unanu, Goya's chief executive officer since 2004, visited the White House on Thursday. He announced Goya will be helping to donate 1 million cans of Goya chickpeas to food banks. We are all truly blessed, at the same time, to have a leader like President Trump, who is a builder, said Unanu, a Spanish-American from New York. Democrats Julian Castro and Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez joined the protest, the hashtags trending Boycott Goya and Goya Way. Trump is scheduled to meet with Venezuelan migrants on Friday afternoon in Miami-Dade County city of Doral. Yeah, this was a little shorty quick hitter here, but I mean, the CEO of Goya praised the president, and now everybody wants to stop buying Goya. I like Goya stuff, by the way. And I'm not Hispanic. I like Goya stuff. But it just, the fact of the matter is, if you decide what you want to buy based on where the CEO decides to put his political faith, you're going to starve to death. I'm telling you right now, because there's a lot more out there than what, I mean, these people are putting out lists of, well, this company donated to the Trump administration or the Trump re-election campaign. Don't buy from this company anymore. They donated to evil Orange Man. I'm going to tell you right now, there are a lot of companies out there that have donated to both sides over the years. And if you try to only buy companies that have only donated to the people that are on your team, you're going to starve to death in a fucking hurry. I do one boycott currently. 2 boycotts. But they're just personal boycotts, and I don't encourage anybody else to do so. Where you want to spend your money is your own business. I don't go to Walmart because they got up on their soapbox and said, well, we are not going to sell 223 ammo anymore because it's used in assault rifles. I said, okay, you don't need my money. And I've never bought ammo at Walmart before in my life. But because they got up on the soapbox, I said, nope, I don't need to spend money here. If you'd have done it silently, I wouldn't have known the difference, and I'd still go to Walmart. But because you had to make a public statement about it, fuck you, you don't need my money. And Burger King, as much as I love their burgers, because they have some of the best burgers I've ever tasted, as far as fast food goes anyway, when they did the chick fries thing, when they did the publicity stunt where they gave you the chicken fries in a pink box if you were a girl and charged you 3 times as much for them, I said, nope, you don't need my money for that anymore either. But once again, if you guys want to go to Burger King, you guys watching, either now or on the replay, if you guys want to go to Burger King or Walmart, I'm not going to fault you for it. They're great companies. They've done great things over the past years. They're great monuments to capitalism, but I just don't feel the need to spend my money there. But just going back to the Goya thing, I mean, yeah, it once again goes back to the fact that these people just believe that anything that touches the evil Orange Man is evil. in spite of the fact that Domino's did a commercial. I mean, this guy was on top of the world in the late 80s. Everybody loved him in the late 80s. And now we're sitting over at this. So, good job, Hispanics. And people who love Goya in general. I shouldn't probably generalize it that way, but good job, all of you. I'm going to go buy some Goya when I go grocery shopping the next time. Hope they have low-carb stuff. Probably do. All right, let's keep going here. From Fox News again, Trump claims federal forces were all set to go into Seattle when mayor ordered CHOP dismantled. From Yale Halon once again. President Trump claimed in an exclusive interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity Thursday the White House had not notified Seattle Mayor, or had rather notified Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan that it would send some federal forces to dismantle the infamous CHOP protest zone, but local police went in before we got there. We were going in very soon, Trump said on Hannity. We let them know that, and all of a sudden they didn't want that, so they went in before we got there. But we were going in very shortly, very soon. We would have taken the CHOP, the best CHOP, back very easily. But they went in, and frankly, the people just gave up. It was the best decision. They just gave up. They were tired. They had it for a long period of time. Seattle police forcefully cleared the CHOP area July 1st after weeks of protests that culminated in 2 fatal shootings, forcing the city's Democratic leadership to act after weeks of mounting security. No, you can't claim credit for that. You avoided the trap, and you can't claim credit for dismantling it. Trump repeatedly offered to deploy the National Guard, vowing to not let Seattle be occupied by anarchists, and threatening to straighten it out if local leaders didn't. After Durkan's repeated objections, Trump said he was prepared to take matters into his own hands. We were all set to go into Seattle, he said. Frankly, I was looking forward to it. It was the best, the greatest decision. The Seattle mayor's office and police did not immediately respond to an after-hours email from Fox News for comment. The day after Seattle police reclaimed the CHOP area on Durkan's orders, Trump personally reached out to the father of a 19-year-old who was gunned down in the zone. Horace Lorenzo Anderson Sr. had made a heart-wrenching appearance on Hannity, describing his experience since his son's June 20th death. And we did read that article when that was new as well. So, yeah, no, you sidestep the bear trap and you don't get to say, I disarmed a bear trap. Come on, dude. All right, let's keep going on to this one. Here from the Daily Wire, top security experts point to history to show how Trump can successfully end the war in Afghanistan. From Ryan Saavedra. Oh, please. It's time to get out of there. But let's see what Ryan's got to say. Eric Prince, chairman of the Frontier Resource Group, pointed to history in an interview with the Daily Wire this week in explaining how President Donald Trump can end the war in Afghanistan and thus secure a win as he seeks re-election. Prince said that the bureaucracy, politicians, and the military-industrial complex was working overtime to stop the war from ending, and that the cost was high from a financial standpoint, as well as from the standpoint of life and limb that are lost in combat. Congress is right to be concerned about terrorism, but there's already 130 terrorist sanctuaries in Afghanistan, and that's a figure from the former head of the NDS, the Afghan Intel Service, Prince said. And with 130 terrorist sanctuaries, meaning no-go areas, that no friendly troops ever go in, that to me is a breeding ground. So with 4,500 troops, you're at best playing whack-a-mole occasionally. I like that. And it does not provide the structural support of that the Afghan forces needed. Prince explained that the current way the U.S. is rotating troops into Afghanistan is not the most effective way to provide the 3 critical components that are needed to achieve success. Mentors, air power, and combat logistics. Prince said that instead of thinking about deploying veteran volunteers contracted to the Afghan government as privatization, officials should think about it as rationalization, meaning the entire goal is to make the operation more efficient. Prince pointed to the Flying Tigers, a group of volunteer American aviators who fought against Japan during the early days of U.S. involvement in World War II, as an example of how contractors can be critical in securing victory on the battlefield. Prince also pointed to another example from history, Trump's own personal history, as a vignette of how the president's instincts have served him well in the past and helped him build his legacy. When young Donald Trump was a developer in New York, Ed Cook was the mayor, and the city was screwing up how they were trying to rehab this ice rink in Central Park. And after seeing this thing flail for years and millions of dollars over budget, Trump said, Give me a chance and let me fix this my way, and I'll get to put my name on it, Prince said, and he did. And within 6 months, the ice rink was reopened, and all is good. President Trump has the same opportunity here, according to Prince, who noted that he believes the president knows that the more efficient option is to deploy veteran volunteers contracted to the Afghan government. Prince said that those who oppose this plan belong to the so-called deep state and include James Mattis, former Secretary of Defense, Joe Dunford, former Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, John Allen, former commander of the U.S.-led coalition in Afghanistan, and H.R. McMaster, retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General. And I'm sure that big mustache guy, I can't think of his name right now, the guy with the book, I'm sure that he's involved in this too somewhere. I can't think of the guy's name. I can see his mustache clearly, but I can't think of the guy's name. The other general. I'm sure he's got a hand in this. If people want to go over there, people are joining up to the army to get free school and then winding up in Afghanistan where they could lose a life and a limb. And there's not a lot of hot combat going on over there anymore, but people are just joining the military and winding up over there where they could get shot at. Whereas we could get people to volunteer from the private sector to do the same thing at this point if they really feel the need to go and build this back up. This is a great idea, and I do hope that it's taken into consideration because it's time to get the hell out of there. We're going to save this one and talk a bit more about this on Monday here. Let's go on and talk from Politico. Ethics watchdog ends review of Gates' office lease. Gates had spent nearly $200,000 in taxpayer money renting an office from an ally of the Florida congressman and his father. From Jake Sherman and John Breshnahan. I don't know. The Office of Congressional Ethics has terminated its review of Republican Representative Matt Gaetz' decision to use taxpayer money to lease an office from a friend, donor, and political ally in Florida. Do you always have to have a contentious relationship with your landlord? Can you not rent from a friend? Is that illegal? In April, Politico reported that Gates had spent nearly $200,000 in taxpayer money renting an office from a Pensacola businessman named Collier Merrill, who had long since been an ally of the Florida congressman and his father. Gates and Merrill said the lease was below market value, though Gates also said the lease was at or below market rate. After the initial report, the Office of Congressional Ethics, the independent ethics watchdog, began a review of the interactions between Gates' office and Merrill, but Omar Ashmoe, staff director of OCE, notified Gates of the review's termination on July 1st, according to a letter sent to the Florida Republican's office. Yeah, they'll just keep investigating each other into the ground and spending taxpayer money to do so in order to see how they're spending other taxpayer money. Investigate, but as long as you're investigating, it makes it harder to make unconstitutional laws. Let's keep going. I got one little tweet that I want to read here. Speaking of Florida here, Steve Catorno is criticizing Ron DeSantis because he says something, we've all been saying since the beginning of all this COVID nonsense. If you can do Home Depot, you can do Walmart. You can definitely do the schools, going on to the fact that we're sitting here looking at the fact that the president and a lot of other people want to see the schools open in the fall. And I don't care one way or the other. I think that the homeschool option is actually a good thing, especially with the amount of information that's there versus the amount of information that we had back in the 90s and 2000s when we were criticizing people for homeschooling at the time. There's more information. Most people have a device in their pocket everywhere they go that can give them any piece of information in the world at a second's notice. And homeschooling could be a good thing, but the other end of this, of course, is the fact that, first off, the government needs to make sure the children get their mandated government indoctrination because, as Sticks like to point out, some little kid could be out there in the Zoom call with his teacher not paying attention and have a Sticks video in another tab and watching that instead and probably getting a lot more education out of the Sticks video than he's getting from his teacher at this point. So, there's a couple sides to this, but the fact of the matter is we're sitting here arm wrestling over the fact, and there's got to be an internal arm wrestle in the DNC as well, because they're trying to square the circle back and forth of, yes, of course, you have to get your kids in for their mandatory dose of government indoctrination. You must get them in for their government indoctrination. But keep in mind, You will die instantly if you step 6 inches outside of your house. You'll die instantly of coronavirus. Instantly. Like that. And you'll be just another coronavirus death. So, a couple things going on there. That was a little quick hitter though. Alright. From the Daily Wire again, Republican convention could be moved outside, report says, from Eric Quintanar. Republican officials have been eyeing the possibility of moving the planned in-person nomination convention outside should the coronavirus pandemic become too significant a barrier that the already planned festivities, according to the Washington Post. The Post, citing several officials with knowledge of the plans, reports that the party officials have looked at two stadiums. One is a minor league baseball park that seats about 11,000 people, and the other is a nearby football stadium that seats nearly 6 times as many people. President Donald Trump recently shared that GOP was considering unspecified options should the current convention's plans become unfeasible, telling the Voice of America host Greta Van Susteren that the party could be flexible when she asked about the increase of coronavirus cases in that area. Two Republicans involved with the planning also told the news agency that party officials were looking into the logistical challenges of moving the event outdoors. The Post reports that officials believe Trump will make the venue decision in upcoming days. The convention, which was originally planned for North Carolina, underwent a venue change back in June after Governor Cooper informed the Republican Party in a letter that he could not guarantee the convention could be hosted in full due to the coronavirus concerns. With the nation, the state of North Carolina, and the city of Charlotte still under states of emergency, it's important to conduct the RNC convention accordingly, wrote Cooper in the letter. As much as we want the conditions surrounding COVID-19 to be favorable enough for you to hold the convention you describe in late August, it's very unlikely. While 6 GOP senators have expressed that they will not be attending the Jacksonville convention, only one person, Senator Grassley, has explicitly cited the coronavirus concerns as the reason for not attending the event. I'm not going to go, and I'm not going to go because of the virus situation, Grassley, the oldest Republican in the Senate, and who has attended every Republican convention in the last 4 decades, said Monday, reports the Des Moines Register. So, and I mean, in Florida, as long as it's not raining, pouring, or there's not a hurricane going by, it's probably not a bad thing to go and get this all outdoors either, but they're going to go kicking and screaming because coronavirus, you'll die if you go 6 inches outside of your house. But we're going to see what happens there. We're going to bookmark that one too for Monday. All right. I've got an AP article here that I found just after I went off air yesterday. I wanted to share with you guys here from Tom Hayes and Colleen Long. Still reeling from the coronavirus pandemic and street protests over the killing of George Floyd, exhausted cities around the nation are facing yet another challenge, a surge in shootings that has left dozens dead, including young children. The spike defies easy explanation, experts say, pointing to the toxic mix of issues facing America in 2020, an unemployment rate not seen in a generation, a pandemic that has killed more than 130,000 people, fact check needed, stay-at-home orders, rising anger over police brutality, intense stress, and even the weather. I think it's just a perfect storm of distress in America, said Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms after a weekend of bloodshed in her city. Jerry Radcliffe, Temple University criminal justice professor and host of the Reducing Crime podcast, put it more bluntly. Anyone who thinks they can disentangle all of this probably doesn't know what they're talking about. President Trump has seized on the violence for political gain. Evil Orange Man, accusing Democrats of being weak and suggesting the crime wave is being driven by recent protests calling for racial justice, police reform, and drastic cuts in law enforcement funding. Law and order are the building blocks of the American dream, but if anarchy prevails, this dream comes crumbling down. And I read that in Trump's voice even though it was Kayleigh McEnany. Police officials in New York City and elsewhere say the recent bloodshed has shown there are consequences to some reforms they see as misguided, particularly on bail reform enacted before a protest happened, but exacerbated by the moment. Emboldened criminals feel that cops can't do anything anymore, that no one likes the police, that they can get away with things, and that it's safe to carry a gun out onto the street, New York Police Department Chief Terrence Monahan said this week. Monahan's remarks came after a holiday weekend that saw a wave of shootings, leaving 10 dead. Throughout Sunday, they were more than 53% to 585 so far this year. 10 dead in a weekend in New York. And across the country last year, there were 9 police-involved shootings of unarmed black men. I want you to put that into perspective for a second. 10 in a weekend through the wave of no authority and no police versus the 9 that they're protesting about. And once again, I am no big fan of the police myself. I think when they do the right thing and they protect the property and lives of others, they're good people. But there are too many laws out there for victimless crimes that they also have to enforce in the same breath. And that's where you start to make things complicated. Nobody should be going to federal prison for smoking a joint. So, yeah. You take the police out of the area where people are packed in like sardines, and you wonder why violence has erupted at this point. I'm saving this article as well, but I can't even begin to work around the logic of your average journalist at this point. Alright, let's keep going here before I lose any more faith in humanity. Alright, from Daily Wire, de Blasio suggests ban on public gatherings like parades or fairs. Black Lives Matter protests are different from Hank Berrien. On Thursday, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio suggested that on CNN that gatherings such as normal parades and fairs would be restricted in his city, but Black Lives Matter protests would not be shut down. On Thursday, de Blasio helped paint a Black Lives Matter mural in front of Trump Tower in Manhattan and yelled, "We are saying Black Lives Matter in New York City and Black Lives Matter in the United States of America. Please give me your vote and let me pander to you. Let's show Donald Trump what he does not understand. Let's paint it right in front of his building for him." Later, the mayor appeared on CNN with host Wolf Blitzer, who asked him, "What about protests? If people want to march down Fifth Avenue, are they going to be allowed to do so?" De Blasio answered, "Look, Wolf, this is always an area of real sensitivity. If you're just talking about health, we would always say, hey folks, stay home if you can. But we understand at this moment in history, people are talking about the need for historic changes. I mean, today in New York City, recognizing the power and meaning of the message Black Lives Matter, which we did in front of Trump Tower today, this is a historic moment of change. We have to respect that, but also say to people the kinds of gatherings we're used to, the parades, the fairs. We can't just have that while we're focusing on health right now." Later, de Blasio declared that painting the mural was not denigrating Fifth Avenue, as President Trump had tweeted, but liberating it. President Trump tweeted on July 1st, "New York City is cutting the police money by $1 billion, and yet the New York City mayor is going to paint a big, expensive yellow Black Lives Matter sign on Fifth Avenue, denigrating the luxury avenue. This will further antagonize New York's finest, who love New York and vividly remember the horrible BLM chant, pigs in a blanket, fry 'em like bacon. Maybe our great police, who have been neutralized and scorned by a mayor who hates and disrespects them, won't let this symbol of hate be affixed to New York's greatest street. Spend the money fighting crime instead." De Blasio called Trump's remarks about the mural pure racism. So, this is pandering to all kinds of pandering. I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening in my lifetime. But de Blasio wants to go out and get reelected, and he's going to do anything to do so, and including going on and saying, "Orange man bad." And whatever you want to do on your street, it's city property. You're the mayor. Absolutely, go and do it on the street. But all you're doing right now is just trying to do this to the president when you do it in front of a building that says Trump. But once again, just fight back and forth with each other. That's all this is. Alright, I got a couple more here, and then we'll read the names of people who chatted in the live chat. So if you're in the live chat and you haven't said a word yet, make sure you get up on in there so I read your name at the end of this here. You've got 3 more articles to get your message out there. So, from Breitbart, student Marquette U threatened to revoke acceptance over pro-Trump TikTok video. That's what I think of your TikTok right there. From Tim Sikchoda. Marquette University reportedly threatened to rescind the admission of a student over a TikTok video that expressed support for President Trump. After a period of uncertainty, Marquette ultimately told the student this week that they would not revoke her admission. According to a report by the College Fix, incoming Marquette University freshman Samantha Pfefferly almost had her admission revoked after students expressed outrage over her conservative social media posts. The post, which featured the song Gooba by 6ix9ine, is titled When Libs Find Out Their Way to Your Page. The video has been played 592,000 times since it was posted. They try to hate on me, and they think I'll change my views, Pfefferly wrote in a caption featured in the short video. Pfefferly claims that Brian Troyer, Dean of Admissions at Marquette University, contacted her after her video went viral. Pfefferly claims that Troyer told her admissions status was in limbo before asking her about the stance on DACA recipients. He had the heart to tell me I wasn't a student, Pfefferly told the College Fix. This means that my classification is still in limbo and is currently being decided by the administration. I have been accepted, I paid for my housing, I have my roommates, I even have a complete class schedule. If that doesn't make me a student, what does? They also asked me hypothetical questions regarding dreamers, Pfefferly continued. How would I respond if a dreamer who lived down the hall from me came up to me and told me she didn't feel safe or comfortable with my views being on campus? They also asked me if they thought that there was anything I could do to improve my image on campus. They proceeded to ask if I was comfortable with the reputation I have established for myself. The assistant dean asked if I put any thought into the response I would be getting from my videos. On Monday, however, the university contacted Pfefferly to inform her that her admission had not been revoked. As of now, Pfefferly is urging Marquette to address the harassment she has received in response to the video. Students shared an email template which called the university to revoke Pfefferly's admission. The email argued that Pfefferly's support of President Trump on social media contradicted Marquette's core values. Which is amazing because Marquette's actually been historically a fairly conservative university. I'm familiar with Marquette. I've gone out with a few girls that have gone there. I used to drive by the damn thing every day because it was the easiest way for me to get to work was to get off on Wisconsin Street and take that instead of going the rest of the way up the interstate, which was usually jammed by that point. There was an exit from the interstate right by where I worked, but it was usually jammed up by that point, so it was easier to get off on 10th Street and take Wisconsin over at the time because that was usually not as crowded. I mean, you had the people walking back and forth from class, but still, you, for the most part, kept going the whole time. So, I can't believe that this is actually happening, especially at Marquette. I mean, I could see this over at the UW or at like Parkside or something here in Wisconsin, or even at Harvard or something, one of the big other big names like that. But Marquette, I can't believe that. But yeah, just having the wrong opinions could deny you an education that is supposed to be guaranteed for everybody, by the way, if you listen to people like Bernie Sanders. So I don't know how they square that circle either. That's amazing to see the hypocrisy of the American college student at this point. Just, it's amazing to see it. But in reality, I have to wonder, I've got to ask too, why, in the Discord when I posted this article to bookmark it for myself so I could talk about it today, Harvey McLeod pointed out the fact that why do people even go to college anymore? I pointed out it's for accreditation, and that's really all that it is anymore. And like I said on the primary school thing, every one of these kids has a device in their pocket that will give them any piece of information in the world at a moment's notice. You can go on YouTube and learn how to do anything that you really need to do, from programming to automotive repair to wood carving to candle making to machining to just about anything else you can figure out how to do over on YouTube or on Google or anything else. And that's just using the big main terms. You don't need college anymore. It's accreditation and it's indoctrination is all that it is at this point. So Harvey is right. Why do you even go to college at this point anymore? How do you square that circle? I took that phrase from Gender the Libertarian and I just keep using it all the time, but it fits at this point. So, anyway, enjoy college, Samantha Pfefferly. I don't know if it's going to go the way that you want it to, because I'm sure that you're going to find dead animals and crap on your dorm room step, but enjoy college and get the most out of it, at least. Get the accreditation and go in and try and work the system out from the inside. All right, now we've got some just general entertainment news here. Another one from the Daily Wire. Ben Stiller refuses to remove Trump from Zoolander from Paul Bois. Ben Stiller will not be caving to the woke mob by removing President Trump's cameo from his 2001 comedy Zoolander. Speaking on the Daily Beast podcast, The New Abnormal, Stiller said that President Trump's appearance will remain, noting that his cameo was a spur-of-the-moment opportunity at the VH1 Fashion Awards red carpet pre-show. We were shooting at the now-defunct VH1 Fashion Awards, and as people were coming up the red carpet, we pulled them aside and asked them to talk about Derek Zoolander, and so Trump and Melania did that, Stiller said. As reported by the New York Post, I've had people reach out to me and say, you should edit Donald Trump out of Zoolander, but at the end of the day, that was a time when that exists, and that happened. There were so many movies back then and that had a silly cameo from Donald Trump, Stiller said. He represented a certain thing, he later added. Ben Stiller also believes President Trump will always appreciate the fact that he was part of Zoolander. In 2016, for instance, Stiller shared a theory with MSNBC host Chris Matthews as to why he thought Zoolander 2 did so poorly. There was a funny story that Chris Matthews told me, he said, as reported by the Toronto Sun. He was interviewing Trump during the 2016 presidential campaign and there was a commercial break. Zoolander 2 had come out and was a big bomb, didn't do well, and they'd been talking about nuclear arms or something, and Trump's stance would be with the Russians, and then Trump brought up Zoolander 2 and started talking about why he thought the movie didn't do so well. And he started going into detail saying, it's just that in culture, people don't care about male models anymore, and Chris found it so interesting that he was fascinated about why Zoolander 2 didn't do well, as opposed to what to do with the Russians and nuclear arms proliferation, he continued. This past Christmas, it appeared that the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation cut President Trump's cameo in the movie Home Alone 2 for political reasons. That theory, however, was debunked by the fact that those edits were made in 2014 before Trump ran for president. And, as is often the case with feature films adapted for television, Home Alone 2 was edited for time. The scene with Donald Trump was one of several that were cut from the movie, and as none of them were integral to the plot, the CBC said in a statement, these edits were done in 2014, when we first acquired the film and before Mr. Trump was elected president. According to Matt Damon, Trump also had a cameo in the Oscar-winning movie Scent of a Woman that was left on the cutting room floor. The deal was that if you wanted to shoot in one of his buildings, you had to write him in a part, Damon said. Director Martin Brest had to write something in The Scent of a Woman, and the whole crew was in on it. You have to waste an hour of your day with bullshit shot. Donald Trump walks in, and Al Pacino's like, hello, Mr. Trump. You had to call him by name, and then he exits. You waste a little time so that you can get the permit, and then you can cut the scene out. But I guess in Home Alone 2, they left it in. So, and I mean, good on Stiller, because that's art, and a lot of people are going to have the DVD anyway. And especially if you cut Trump out and renew the digital license for it, or redo the digital licensing for it after you cut him out, that DVD is going to be a collector's item, and you're just going to make Trump supporters rich at that point. So there's a lot of things in there. I mean, once again, I go back to the fact that, on American Top Gear, they sold the luxury car to Trump. I believe it was the Porsche. They sold it to Trump. He was in Home Alone. He was in Zoolander. He was in all these other things. He was the pinnacle of society until he came down the escalator and said, I'm running for president. All right, last one here. From Pop Sugar, which is not a green check verified, so we're not going to go too far into this, but I thought it was entertaining. Bill Nye shares a PSA about the effectiveness of different face mask styles from Victoria Messina. Leave it to Bill Nye, the science guy, to share the face mask PSA the world needs right now. In a series of TikTok videos shared on Wednesday, the Science Whiz broke down why it's so important to wear a face mask in public amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Sporting one of his signature bow ties and holding a blue surgical mask, Nye explained face masks like this one prevent particles from respiratory system from getting into the air and then into your respiratory system. He went on to use a lit candle to illustrate the effectiveness of different types of face coverings. Holding up a neck scarf, he said, it can block the movement of air, but only to a certain extent, before blowing through the thick material and causing the flame to immediately extinguish. Next up, he demonstrated how both homemade cloth masks and an N95 respirator successfully hinder the movement of air, seeing the candle stayed lit as he blew through both of them. in his second video, Nye reiterated, the reason we want you to wear a mask is to protect you, sure, but the main reason we want you to wear a mask is to protect me from you and the particles in your respiratory system from getting into my respiratory system. Everybody, this is a matter of literally life and death. And when I use the word literally, I mean literally a matter of life and death. And if you're looking to stock up on face masks, browse these cloth options that have filter pockets or these breathable designs that are perfect for summer. And once again, I mean, it's not the government that's coming down to do this, but if Bill Nye had his way, we'd all be masked and in chains other way. And I wanted to share this because of the fact that, yes, they're using this washed up guy that said very different things all the way back in the 90s when he was on TV and even in the late 80s when he was on TV. And now it's just being used as a political prop because they want to say that they're the party of science, but they are, in fact, as Ben Shapiro likes to say, the party of science. Which is to say science that fits their political agenda, whether it's true or not. So, thank you, Bill Nye, for making these completely pointless videos. All right, and thank you for the advertisement right at the end. All right, it is Friday, which means it's time to thank the most important part of contemporary. So, let's go ahead and we'll read backwards and see who's all in here. So, rounding out the end of it, we've got Ron Helton, Sully Blue. Thanks for coming in and checking us out here. Seawall is in here as well. Thanks for coming in and checking us out. Oh, that's quite the interesting sticker you got there, Sully. Boulder Vaughn came in here. Welcome on in, Boulder Vaughn. Thanks for coming and checking us out. Let's see who else is in here. Looks like I see Miami 1984, who apparently is in Illinois, which I don't know where in Illinois you are, and of course don't dox yourself on my account, but I am just over the state line on the Wisconsin side of Illinois too. Not too far away from Highway 39. So it'd be kind of cool if, if you were close enough, we'd hang out or something. I don't know. I hung out with Sully once. See, that was pretty cool. The Lost American Show, that's a new name in here. Welcome on in. Thanks for coming and checking us out. I'll go and check out your channel as well, because it looks like you've got your own podcast coming up here. And that's it for today. So let's see who else chatted out throughout the week. On Thursday, we had Sully Blue, Ron Helton. Roundtable Decision came in right before he went off and did his new show. So, by the way, go and check that out. That was pretty cool. Miami 1984, see you all was in here. Flancorp showed up for briefly. Welcome on in. I've seen him around my chats before. And we had a new Twitch name. Eminem is a terrible rapper who was not very appreciative of our country, as I could recall from the chat here. Wednesday was a bit of a slow day. We had Ron Helton, Sully Blue, and Miami 1984. Tuesday was a bit of a slow day as well. We had Candace Fitt, who I found out later after I went on rewatched the Periscope broadcast. Actually wasn't Candace, so I don't know why his Periscope name came up like that. Sully Blue and Ron Helton. And on Monday we had Sully Blue, Ron Helton, Blind Fear Baby Boy was in here, Dabba Cannabis, 420 was in here. The Chill Anarchist showed up for a little bit during that day. Seawall was here, and Blind Fear Baby Boy was here as well. Looks like we got a couple new messages here, and we'll see if anybody new is in here, and then we're going to head on out of here. Nope, it's just more Ron Helton. Thanks for closing out the show here, Ron Helton, with your last comment about Bill Nye. That's awesome. And from that, we're going to call it a day. So thank you, everybody who came by. Oh, I gotta do the right window here. So thanks everybody who came by and chatted throughout the week and kept me accountable. And it's Bolton, by the way, goddammit. I just remembered that. Bolton, the guy with the mustache. That just crossed my mind right now. I don't know if anybody said it in the chat or not, but I'll go back and look at that as well. But it was Bolton. All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and head on out of here. I'll be heading out to work here. We'll get the audios finished up probably tomorrow, and we will have an Ed Talk tomorrow as well. I don't know what the topics are going to be yet. There's plenty to talk about, but other than that, come by, hang out, and get your questions answered, because it's not just going to be my topics on Ed Talk. You guys get to shape that show, so make sure you get in there and get your questions in, and I'm going to spend an hour answering questions tomorrow at 5:30 p.m. Central Time. So come on in and hang out, and we'll all hang out together. live stream here. Other than that, we will be back here on Monday for more contemporary because there's going to be more news. And don't forget, episode 2 of the Red and Ed Show will be on Monday night. So come and check us out. And we're working up a good schedule as well. So come on in and hang out. As we always say, never take the words of bloggers, podcasters, or journalists as gospel. Find all the facts and draw your own conclusions. And until the next time I see you all, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary.